The fuel warning light had been glowing for so long that Daniel had stopped noticing it. At first, it had felt harmless, just another small inconvenience on a road trip he had already grown tired of. He had convinced himself that the next town would appear any minute, that a gas station would rise out of the darkness like a promise kept. The highway stretched straight ahead, cutting through the desert with merciless precision, its faded lines barely visible under the headlights. The radio had died an hour earlier, dissolving into static before surrendering completely. Now there was only the low hum of the engine and Daniel's own thoughts, growing louder the longer he drove. He glanced at the dashboard again. The needle was trembling, hovering just above empty, as if afraid to touch it. A strange unease settled in his chest. The road signs offered no comfort. Distances were scratched away, town names faded into nothing. The desert around him felt endless, older than memory, watching him with quiet patience. Daniel swallowed and tightened his grip on the steering wheel. Then the car shuddered. It was subtle at first. A weak vibration that traveled up through the pedals and into his legs. Daniel eased off the gas, his heart beating faster. "Come on," he whispered, as if the car could hear him. The engine coughed, a dry, choking sound, then sputtered again. The headlights flickered, one final hollow jerk, and silence. The car rolled forward a few feet before stopping completely. Daniel sat frozen, staring right ahead. The sudden quiet felt unnatural, like the world itself had stopped breathing. He turned the key. The engine clicked uselessly. He tried again. Nothing. The dashboard lights dimmed, then steadied, the fuel needle resting firmly on empty, unapologetic. "Great," he muttered, forcing a weak laugh that quickly died in his throat. He checked his phone. No signal, 30% battery. The screen's glow felt fragile in the vast darkness surrounding him. With a sigh, he opened the door and stepped out onto the highway. The cold hit him instantly. It sank through his jacket and into his bones, far sharper than he expected from a desert night. He closed the door and stood there for a moment, listening. There was no wind, no distant traffic, no insects, just silence so complete it rang in his ears. Above him, the sky was crowded with stars, sharp and unblinking, like countless eyes fixed on his every move. He walked to the back of the car and opened the trunk out of habit, even though he already knew there was no spare fuel can inside. A blanket, an old backpack, nothing useful. He slammed the trunk shut and exhaled slowly, trying to calm himself. That's when he heard it. A soft crunch behind him. Daniel froze. His breath caught in his throat. He listened carefully, straining to identify the sound. Another crunch followed, slow and deliberate, like a foot pressing into sand. His heart began to race. He turned around quickly, scanning the darkness. The road was empty. Probably an animal, he whispered to himself, though the words felt hollow. He forced himself "Oh, relax," and started walking back toward the driver's door. Crunch. This time the sound was closer. Daniel stopped again. His pulse pounded in his ears. Slowly he raised his phone and turned on the flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness, illuminating the pale sand beside the road. What he saw made his stomach twist violently. Footprints. They were deep and clear, pressed freshly into tea. He sand, leading from the darkness straight toward him. Human footprints, large, heavy, as if whoever made them had been standing right there moments ago. Daniel swept the flashlight around wildly. "Hello?" he called, his voice cracking. The light revealed nothing but empty desert. No movement, no shadow, just the footprints stopping a few feet away from him. The silence thickened, pressing Aga. Inced him. He felt watched. Suddenly the car doors slammed shut. The sound exploded through the night, echoing across the open land. Daniel jumped back with a shout, nearly dropping his phone. He rushed to the driver's door and yanked the handle. Locked. He tried the passenger door. Locked. His breath came in short, panicked bursts. He hadn't locked the car. He was sure of it. Behind him, the S. And crunched again. Daniel turned slowly. The footprints were moving. They advanced one by one, appearing in the sand as if pressed down by invisible weight. Each step brought them closer, closer, until they were almost at his feet. Panic surged through him, raw and overwhelming. He backed away, shaking his head. "No," he whispered. "No, no, no." He turned and ran. He didn't think about direct, or distance. He just ran, lungs burning, legs pounding against the uneven ground. The darkness swallowed him whole. He stumbled more than once, barely catching himself before falling. The car and the road disappeared behind him, replaced by endless sand and shadows. After what felt like an eternity, he slowed, gasping for air. His chest hurt, his throat burned. He bent over, hands on his knee. Yes, trying not to vomit. When he looked up, his heart sank. There was nothing. No road, no car, no lights. Just the desert stretching endlessly in every direction. A voice whispered behind him, "Out of gas?" Daniel spun around, his flashlight shaking violently. The beam cut through empty space. There was no one there. His skin prickled as if something cold had brushed past him. "You shouldn't have stopped," the voice said again, closer now, softer, almost amused. Daniel screamed and ran again, blind with terror. Tears streamed down his face as he pushed himself harder than he thought possible. The ground suddenly disappeared beneath his foot. He tripped, crashing forward, the impact knocking the breath from his lungs. His phone flew from his hand, landing nearby, the flashlight beam pointing uselessly at the sky. He lay there, choking, trying to breathe. When he finally managed to lift his head, he saw them, footprints. They surrounded him in a wide circle, dozens of them, pressed deep into the sand. No matter where he looked, they were there, enclosing him. Yet the space inside the circle remained empty. The air grew colder, so cold he could see his breath fogging in Fran. Of him. His hands shook uncontrollably as he struggled to his feet. "Please," he sobbed. "I just want to go home." The footprints began to move inward. Each step was slow, deliberate, inevitable. Daniel backed away until his heel struck something solid. He flinched and turned around. His car stood behind him. For a moment, he couldn't understand what he was seeing. The car was there, perfect, intact, resting on the sand as if it had never left the road. Relief and confusion crashed over him at the same time. He didn't question it. He ran to the driver's door and threw it open, diving inside. The interior was freezing, colder than the night air. The smell inside was wrong too, stale, metallic. The door slammed shut behind him on its own. The locks clicked down simultaneously. The dashboard lights flickered to life. The fuel needle still rested on empty. Daniel clutched the steering wheel, his knuckles white. He looked up through the windshield. The footprints stopped inches from the hood. The silence outside was absolute. Then something emerged from the darkness. At first it was only a distortion, like heat rising from asphalt. Slowly it took shape, tall, unnaturally thin. Its body bent in ways that made Daniel's eyes ache to follow. Where its face should have been, there was only smooth darkness, empty and wrong. It leaned closer to the windshield. Daniel screamed and twisted the key, again and again. The engine clicked weakly, but refused to turn over. The thing tilted its head, as if studying him. A low sound escaped it, something that felt like laughter vibrating inside his skull. "You walked too far," it said. "Now you belong to the road." The windshield cracked with a sharp snap. A thin white line spread across the glass, then another, and another. The cracks multiplied rapidly, spiderwebbing outward. Daniel curled up in his seat, sobbing, covering his head, begging for it to stop. Suddenly, everything went still. The cracks vanished, the dashboard lights went dark, the presence outside disappeared. Warmth returned to the car. Daniel looked up slowly. Sunlight spilled across the desert. Morning had come. The road stretched out before him, quiet and empty. Birds chirped faintly in the distance. The world looked normal, peaceful. The driver's door stood open. Daniel stepped out, shaking, his mind struggling to make sense of what had happened. There were no footprints in the sand, no sign of anything unusual. The car sat calmly on the shoulder of the highway, just another broken-down vehicle in the middle of nowhere. He laughed weakly, convinced it had all been a nightmare brought on by exhaustion and fear. He reached for his phone. Hours later, a passing trucker noticed the abandoned car and called the authorities. Police arrived and searched the area thoroughly. The car was still there, keys in the ignition, perfectly intact. The fuel tank was completely empty. Daniel was nowhere to be found. Search team combed the desert for days. Helicopters flew overhead. Dogs were brought in. Nothing. No tracks, no body, no explanation. Eventually, the case went cold, filed away as another unexplained disappearance. Locals later claimed the highway had a reputation. They said if you drove it at night and let your fuel run too low, the desert would test you, and if you stepped away from your car when you were The fuel light came on just as the forest swallowed the road. Maria noticed it immediately, the small orange glow reflecting in her tired eyes. She slowed down slightly, irritation creeping into her chest. She had checked the tank before leaving. She was sure of it, half full, enough to get her home. Yet there it was, blinking calmly, as if it had been waiting for the worst possible moment. Tall trees pressed in from both sides of the narrow road, their branches arching overhead like twisted fingers. The headlights barely reached beyond the first row of trunks. Every mile marker looked the same, bent and rusted, numbers barely readable. Maria reached for her phone. No signal. She sighed and placed it back on the seat, trying to ignore the unease settling in her stomach. The engine began to feel different, not weaker exactly, just strained, as if something was holding it back. Maria pressed the accelerator gently. The car responded slowly, reluctantly. She whispered to herself that it was fine, that she'd find a station soon. There had to be one. Roads like this always had something nearby. Then, through the trees, she saw a light. It was faint at first, barely. Noticeable, but unmistakably artificial. White and steady. Relief washed over her so suddenly that she laughed out loud. As she rounded the next bend, the source of the light revealed itself. A gas station. It looked old, very old. The sign was cracked and leaning, its letters faded almost beyond recognition. Only one pump stood outside, rusted and crooked. The building itself was small and dark, except for a single fluorescent light buzzing above the entrance. Maria didn't question it. She pulled in quickly, her car rolling to a stop beside the pump just as the engine died completely. Perfect timing, she thought, exhaling shakily. She stepped out of the car. The air felt heavy, thick with the smell of damp earth and something metallic underneath. The forest around the station was cheerily still. No insects, no wind, not even the usual nighttime sounds. The door to the station creaked open. An old man stood inside, barely lit by the flickering light overhead. He was thin, his clothes hanging loosely from his frame. His eyes were wide and unblinking, reflecting the light in a way that made Maria uncomfortable. "You're almost empty," he said. Maria paused. She hadn't spoke. Yet. Slowly she nodded. "Yeah. I was lucky to find this place." The old man's lips twitched, not quite a smile. "People usually are." She paid without looking too closely at the screen. The numbers didn't seem right anyway. The pump worked strangely, the handle stiff in her hand, the sound of fuel flowing oddly quiet. When it clicked off, she felt a wave of relief. As she turned to leave, the old man leaned closer across the counter. "Don't look in your back seat," he whispered. Maria laughed nervously. "What?" "Just drive," he said. His eyes never blinked. Her laughter faded. Unease crawled up her spine. She nodded quickly and stepped outside. The forest seemed darker now, the station's light dimmer. She got into her car, locked the doors, and pulled away. The gas station disappeared behind the trees faster than she expected. The road stretched ahead again, winding and narrow. Maria kept her eyes firmly on it, her hands tight on the steering wheel. The old man's words echoed in her mind. "Don't look in your back seat." She told herself it was nothing. A joke, a creepy old guy trying to scare a lone traveler. Her heart rate slowly returned to normal. She even smiled, shaking her head at her own imagination. Then she heard it, a soft sound behind her, not loud, just enough to notice, like fabric shifting. Maria's smile vanished. She glanced at the rearview mirror for just a second. The mirror showed the empty road behind her, nothing else. She swallowed. "Get a grip," she whispered. Her eyes returned to the road. The sound came again, this time closer. A slow, wet inhale. Her fingers trembled on the wheel. The urge to look grew stronger, burning in her mind. Every instinct screamed at her not to. She remembered the old man's eyes, the way he had known. The road suddenly dipped sharply downward. Maria pressed the brakes slightly. The car didn't slow. Panic urged. She pressed harder. Nothing. The engine revved, then sputtered. The dashboard lights flickered wildly. The fuel needle dropped, straight to empty. No, 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 Maria gasped. The car jerked violently and swerved. She lost control, crashing into a tree with a deafening crunch. Pain exploded through her body. Glass shattered. Then everything went dark. When Maria opened her eyes, the world was silent. She was still in the car. The airbag had deployed. Her head throbbed. Slowly she lifted her gaze. Something was sitting in the back seat. It was pale. Too pale. Its limbs were folded wrong, bent at angles that made her stomach twist. Its mouth stretched into a wide, unnatural smile, teeth pressed tightly together. Its eyes were open, too open, staring directly at her. Maria screamed. The sound caught in her throat as the thing leaned forward, its breath cold against her neck. Later that night, police responded to reports of a crash. On the forest road, they found Maria's car wrapped around a tree. The front was badly damaged. Inside, the driver's seat was empty. There were no signs of struggle, no footprints leading away from the scene. The gas tank was completely empty. There was no gas station anywhere on that road. Locals would later say the forest sometimes offered help to those who were desperate, but help always came with a price. And if you ever ran out of gas there, you were never truly alone in your car. The fuel gauge dropped faster than Kevin expected. One moment it hovered just above the red, the next it sank as if pulled down by invisible weight. Snow fell harder with every mile, thick white flakes blurring the narrow mountain road. The headlights carved 2 weak tunnels through the storm, barely revealing what lay ahead. Kevin swallowed and glanced at Ryan in the passenger seat. "You said this road was a shortcut," Kevin said, trying to keep his voice steady. "It is," Ryan replied, though he sounded less confident than before. "There should be a station up ahead. I've taken this route before." The car shuddered slightly as they climbed higher. Trees loomed on either side, tall and skeletal, their branches heavy with snow. There were no houses, no lights, no signs of life, just the road and the storm. The engine coughed. Both of them went silent. "Don't do that," Kevin muttered, tapping the dashboard as if it might help. The car sputtered again, then slowed. The steering wheel felt heavier in his hands, and then it happened. The engine died. The car rolled forward a few feet before stopping at an awkward angle on the icy road. Snow continued to fall, quickly swallowing the tire tracks behind them. Kevin tried the ignition. The engine clicked. Uselessly. "No way," Ryan said, staring at the fuel gauge. "That's not possible." Kevin checked his phone. No signal. The cold crept in immediately, seeping through the doors and windows. He turned the heater knob. Nothing but cold air. They sat in silence for a moment, listening to the storm batter the car. "We can't stay here," Ryan finally said. "We'll freeze." Kevin nodded reluctantly. "We shouldn't leave the car either." As if summoned by his words, headlights appeared through the snowfall ahead. Kevin squinted. "Do you see that?" The lights grew brighter, approaching slowly. A vehicle pulled over several yards in front of them. The driver's door opened, and a man stepped out. He wore a dark coat and no hat, despite the freezing cold. He walked toward them calmly, his boots no sound on the snow. Kevin rolled down the window just enough to speak. "We ran out of gas." The man nodded. His face looked strangely pale in the headlights, his features sharp and hollow. "There's a station not far from here," he said. "Too cold to wait." Relief flooded Ryan's face. "Thank God. How far?" 10 minutes on foot," the man replied. "I'll show you." Kevin hesitated. Something about the man's eyes unsettled him. They were dark, too dark, reflecting nothing. "We should stay together," Kevin said. "Both of us." The man's gaze shifted to Kevin slowly. "One of you should stay with the car," he said, "in case help comes." Ryan was already opening the door. "I'll go," he said quickly. "You stay warm." Kevin grabbed his arm. "Ryan." "It's fine," Ryan insisted, forcing a smile. "I'll be back in a few minutes." Before Kevin could argue, Ryan stepped out into the storm. The man turned and began walking down the road, disappearing into the falling snow. Ryan followed, his shape fading until both of them were swallowed by the white darkness. Kevin watched until he could no longer see them. Minutes passed. The storm grew louder. The cold intensified. Kevin rubbed his hands together, his breath fogging the air inside the car. He kept his eyes on the road, expecting to see Ryan's silhouette return at any moment. 10 minutes passed, then 20. A sense of dread settled deep in Kevin's chest. He rolled down the window slightly and listened. At first there was nothing but the wind. Then, faintly, he heard it. A scream. It echoed through the mountains, raw, and terrified, cut short as if something had grabbed it and crushed it. Kevin's blood ran cold. "Ryan," he shouted into the storm. No answer. Headlights suddenly appeared behind the car. Kevin turned sharply, heart racing. The same vehicle pulled up behind him. The driver's door opened. The man stepped out again, snow clinging to his coat. Alone. Kevin's throat went dry. "Where's my friend?" The man approached slowly, his footsteps still silent. "He went ahead," he said calmly. "The station is closer than he thought." Kevin locked the doors. The man stopped beside the driver's window and tilted his head. Up close, Kevin could see that the man's skin looked stretched, too tight, as if it didn't quite fit what was underneath. "You should come too," the man said softly. "It's warmer where we're going." Kevin shook his head violently. "No, I'm staying here." For a moment, the man's he stared at him. Then his mouth began to open. It didn't stop. The jaw stretched far wider than any human should, skin tearing slightly at the corners. Darkness filled the opening, deeper than night. A low, wet sound poured out, vibrating through the car. Kevin screamed and scrambled into the back seat as something slammed against the driver's door. The entire car shook. Another impact. And another. The windows frosted over rapidly, ice crawling across the glass like veins. Kevin curled into himself, sobbing, his teeth chattering violently. "Please," he cried, "please." The banging stopped. Silence returned, heavy and absolute. Kevin didn't move, he didn't breathe. Minutes passed, then hours. The cold numbed his body until he could barely feel his fingers. Morning light eventually crept through the frosted windows. When rescue teams arrived later that day after a snowplow spotted the abandoned vehicle, they found Kevin frozen solid in the back seat, his eyes wide open in terror. The car was locked from the inside. The fuel tank was completely empty. Ryan was never found. Locals later claimed that when travelers ran out of gas on that mountain row, something came to offer help, and if you followed it, you were never seen again. They also said the worst choice was staying behind, because the cold wasn't what killed you. Something else was already waiting.